Hello there and welcome. In the previous episode we finished working on our questing system and we added some voiceovers to our NPCs, but at the moment we cannot submit the quest that we created because we needed some rabbit hides. So for this we're going to learn how to hunt down rabbits or basically any animal that you want, and then we're also going to learn how to loot them and get different items to drop. So in this episode we're going to focus on dealing damage and hunting the rabbits, and in the next episode we're going to create the entire looting system. And of course you can apply it later to monsters, to other enemies, and you don't have to use rabbits. So in order to hunt these rabbits we need to be able to deal some damage. And we are not going to create a new weapon in this episode, we're probably going to do it later in this series, but in order to save us time and focus on the thing that we want to do, we're going to use our axe that we already have. So if we open our inventory screen, I added an axe into the inventory. This way we can test this out quicker and we don't have to craft an axe each time we run the game. Now if we go into our resources folder, we can find different things over here, and we have our axe model, but we also have our axe inventory item, and this is the item that appears inside the inventory and it stores different information. So on this inventory item we're going to create another script, and this script will be the weapon script. So each model or each item that we want to be able to deal damage will have this weapon script. So we are going to add a new script. And inside this weapon script, we're only going to have one thing right now, which will be a public int weapon damage. So this will be the damage our weapon is going to deal. And now we can see it appear inside the inspector, so we're going to give it about 20 hit points of damage. Next, we're going to focus on actually interacting with the rabbit and basically hitting the rabbit so we can deal this damage to the rabbit and then hurt it and kill it. So I have only one rabbit over here, which is this rabbit. And we're going to do all the changes on this rabbit, and then we're simply going to save this prefab. So the first change we want to do with this rabbit is to remove the interactable object script from this rabbit, because we can see that for now it was not even active, so we did not use it. So we don't want to use it, we want to do something else. We want to create a new script that will be the animal script, and it will contain different data that is only related to animals or maybe monsters. So we're going to add a component and a new script, animal. Now we can see that this script is still over here, and that's just because we need to apply the changes. So now we're going to apply the changes and it's going to disappear, and we only have the animal script. Inside the animal script, we're going to start adding things. So first of all, we're going to have the animal name. The boolean that checks if the player is near the animal. And then we're going to have the current health and the max health of the animal. Then we're going to have a start method that is going to set the current health to be the max health. Next, we're going to open our interactable object script, and we're going to take this onTriggerEnter and onTriggerExit methods because we want to have the same functionality in the animal script. So we're going to copy this and paste it over here. And these methods will simply let us know if the player is in range of the rabbit, and then we're going to allow different things to happen. And if the player is not in range, then we're not going to allow things to happen. Next, we're going to create the take damage method, and with this method we're going to apply the damage on the animal, and if we reach 0, then the animal is going to die. So we're going to call this method from a different place outside of the script, and we're going to pass in the amount of damage, and then it's going to decrease this amount of damage from the current health. And if the current health goes under 0, then we're going to destroy this game object. And this is just for now. Later, we're also going to run some kind of animation, and we're going to run another code that will trigger the death of this animal and the actual looting of the animal. Now back at the inspector, we're going to give the name of the animal. So in our case, it's a rabbit. And then we're also going to set the max health. So it's going to be 40, and we're not going to set the current health because this will be set at the start of the game. Next, we're going to add another box collider, and we're going to make it trigger, and we're also going to increase the area to about 10, 5, and 10. So you can see that the area is rather big. So this will be the area that the player can enter, and then it will actually trigger this player in range boolean. So it will trigger these methods. Next, we're going to open the selection manager script, and this is the place that we control different interactions inside our game. So if we go to the update method, we have this NPC block, we have the choppable tree, we have the interactable object, and as I told you a few episodes ago, things are not very efficient over here because we created this in the very beginning of our series, and there were a lot of changes over here, so it's not ideal, and I want to change this a bit. I want to make it a bit more efficient, so we're going to do a few changes in this episode and maybe in the next one. But for now, we're just going to start with this animal block. So we basically want to be able to point at the rabbit and see its name, and later we're also going to use it to actually hit the animal. So right after this NPC block, we're going to add some more code. So the code over here is very similar to the things that we did before. After we send this raycast, we want to check if we hit an object that has this animal script. So if it has this animal script and the player is in range, then we're going to display the name of the animal on our interaction text, and we're also going to make it visible. Then we're going to check if the player is holding a weapon. And if the player is holding a weapon and also presses on the left mouse button, then we're going to deal some damage to the animal. So we're going to run this coroutine, this deal damage to, and inside we're going to pass a few different parameters. So first of all, the animal that we actually hit, the delay, and also the damage that we want to deal. So we're going to get this damage from the equip system. We're going to create this method, but if we're not holding a weapon and we're not pressing on the left mouse button, then it's going to be empty. So now let's create this coroutine. Let's create this method. And let's create also this method. So both of these will go into the equip system, and this one will go over here. And of course, we want to make it an I enumerator because it's going to be a coroutine. We're going to change the name of the parameter to be delay and damage, but it's going to be an integer. And then we're going to do yield return new, wait 4 seconds, delay. And after the delay is over, we're going to actually use this animal, and we're going to run this take damage method that is inside the animal. And we're going to pass the damage inside. So we have this method inside our animal script, right? We created this and it receives the damage. So this is what we're going to call over here, and we're going to pass the damage. Now we created this delay and this entire coroutine because when we're going to swing our axe, it's going to take some time to actually hit the animal visibly. So we want to create some kind of delay, or basically control the delay, because each animation will be different. So if we're shooting an arrow, maybe it will take more time to actually hit the animal. And if we're just using a sword, it's going to take less time. So we're going to be able to pass a different delay with each weapon. And after the delay is over, we're also going to pass the damage. So all of this will come from this deal to damage method. So if we go back over here, this is the method that we're going to call inside the coroutine after we actually click on the left mouse button and we're holding a weapon. Now we also need to add code to both of these methods. So if we go over here, we press on Control and click on this, we have both of these methods inside our equip system script, right? This is the singleton that we created some episodes ago when we created our axe. So over here, we're going to add code to both of these methods. Okay, so in this get weapon damage, we're simply going to get the weapon damage from the weapon. So first of all, we check if we're actually holding some kind of item in our hand. And if we're holding this item, then we're going to reach into this weapon script and we're going to get the weapon damage and return this from inside this method. But if we don't have this and something is not working correctly, we're going to return 0. But we're always going to return something, so this will not run at any time. We will always return some kind of damage because we're going to run this get weapon damage only when we know that we have a weapon, right? Because if we go back over here, we first check if we have a weapon in our hand, and only if we have a weapon in our hand, then we will get the damage from our weapon. Then inside this method, we're going to check if we are holding a weapon. So first of all, we check if we hold something in our hand. And if we're actually holding something, then we're going to check if it has this weapon script. And if it has this weapon script and it's not null, then we're going to return true. It means that we're holding a weapon. If it doesn't have this weapon script, it's going to return false. And if we're not holding anything, it will also return false. So this is a way to check if we're actually holding a weapon. And if we're holding a weapon, then this will be true, and then we're going to be able to get the damage, we're going to be able to pass in the delay, and the actual animal that we're trying to hit. Now before we test this and see if it works, we need to go back over here, and there's a mistake that I made. This else should go after this if statement and not this inner if statement. So just fix this and save. Now if we go to our animal script inside the inspector, we can see that the max health is 40. And if we go to our axe, we can see that we have 20 weapon damage. It means that after 2 hits to this rabbit, it will die. So now when we approach this rabbit and we enter inside this zone, we can see that it says rabbit, but we also need the axe. So we're going to open our inventory and equip this axe. And now when we go over here and we point at the rabbit, we give it 1 hit, we give it another hit, and we can see that it's destroyed. Now, of course, this is not satisfying because it simply destroys the rabbit. We want to have some kind of animation, some sound effects, right? But we know that so far everything is working. So now we're basically done with killing the rabbit, but we also want to add these things that I told you, these things that are going to let the player know that he actually hit the rabbit. So we want to add some sound effects, some blood, some animations. So we're going to start with the sounds. For now, we are going to hard code these sounds because we only have one animal, but later you also need to create some kind of method that is going to check what is this animal, and then it's going to play the relevant sounds. So we're going to create a header over here. So we created one audio source that will be the channel where we play these clips, and then we have two clips. One will be when we hit the rabbit and it simply screams, and then when we hit the rabbit and it dies. So we're going to have two different sounds, and you can find these sound files in the link in the description. Now inside the inspector on this animal script, we need to add both of these files, and we also need to add an audio source. So we're going to create an audio source. We're going to drag it over here, and we're going to disable this play on awake, and we don't need to provide it with a clip because we're going to do it from the code. Now if I go into my sounds and inside the animals, I already have these files, so you can find them in the link in the description. So now we're simply going to take this rabbit hit and scream and drag it over here, and the other one will go over here. So back inside the animal script, we're going to actually play these sounds. So if we go into the take damage method over here, after the animal will actually die, we're going to take this sound channel, play one shot, and we're going to provide it with this rabbit hit and die. But if the animal will not die, then we're simply going to play this simple hit and scream. So sound channel, play one shot, rabbit hit and scream. Now, as I told you, this is hard coding because the animal script will go on all of our animals, but we're providing it with specific animal sounds. So what you can do is simply create some kind of method that is going to have a switch statement, and then you're going to provide it with the actual animal, and it's going to give you back the sounds for this animal. If you're having a hard time, I can do it in another episode, but it should be very simple. But for now, we're simply going to hard code this. So if the animal will die, it will run and play this sound. But if the animal will not die, it will play this sound. Also notice that we're destroying this game object right after we play this sound. So we're probably not going to even hear this dying sound because the game object is going to get destroyed right away. Later, we're going to remove this part and we're simply going to run some kind of animation, and then we're going to hear this sound. So let's see if everything is working. So we heard this sound the first time. The second time the rabbit died, so we didn't hear this dying sound because the game object was destroyed, but it's working. So I changed my mind and I'm going to show you how to create this generic method that is going to play the different sounds for the animals, because I already know that you're going to ask me in the comments. So instead of hard coding this over here, we're simply going to have two methods. So private void play dying sound and private void play hit sound. Now you can have more different kinds of sounds for the animals, but you're going to have to do it for yourself. For example, maybe the animal itself will have some kind of sound. Rabbits are very quiet, so we don't need any kind of sound, but if you have a lion, then you probably want to add some kind of roaring or something like that. But we're only going to have this dying and hitting sounds. So first of all, we're going to run it over here. So this will be generic and it will happen for all the animals. And then we're going to run this one over here. And then we're going to take this and place it inside, and we're going to take this one and place it inside. So now we simply need to create some kind of switch statement inside both of these methods to know what is the clip that we want to play. So we're going to do a switch, and then case something, we're going to play this, and then case something, we're going to play another sound, and then default, we're going to play maybe some kind of empty sound. We actually don't have to play anything. We're going to add some breaks over here. And the way we're going to do it is by checking what is this animal. So for this, we're going to create some kind of enum. So enum animal type. And for now, we only have this rabbit, but you can add more things like lion and snake, but we only have this rabbit. And then we also want to have a public enum this animal type. Well, actually, animal type, this animal type, and it should not be public. So it's going to be an animal type that will be this animal type. So we can set this inside the inspector, and then we're simply going to provide this into these methods, into this switch. So if this animal type is equals animal type rabbit, then we're simply going to play this clip. But if it's going to be a lion, then we're going to play another clip that will be the lion clip. Right? And it's not going to work this way. So let's just place this over here. And what is the problem? Oh yeah, we don't need to even check this. It's not an if statement. We can just do it like that. And then we need to provide this one as well. So you get the point. If it's a rabbit, you're going to provide it with the rabbit sound. If it's going to be a lion, you're going to provide it with the lion sound. So you should create another audio clip over here. You're going to name it lion hit and die, and then you're going to provide it inside. And you can keep doing this for all the different animals that you have. You simply need to add more and more animals over here and add more and more animals over here. So this way it's going to be generic and it's not going to be hard coded. Now we can also do a break over here, and we're basically going to do the same thing for the other method. So we check the animal type, but this time we're going to play the screaming sound. And also over here, lion scream sound. So now we need to make this animal type to be the rabbit, right? So in order to see it inside the inspector, we're going to make it a serialized field. We're going to save. And now we can see it inside the animal script, so we simply need to set it to be a rabbit. And if you have this on a lion, you simply need to change this to be a lion, right? Because this is a rabbit, so this animal type will be a rabbit, this will become a rabbit, and then this will become a rabbit, and then it will know that it's a rabbit and it will play this sound. Now that we are done with the sounds, we're going to add some dying animation. So we want our rabbit to actually show that it's dead and not simply destroy this game object. So inside this white rabbit asset that we're using, and we added this in the second episode of the series, so it was a long time ago, and maybe you're using a completely different model and it's fine. But if you're using this rabbit, we got a bunch of different animations, so we also got a death animation. So if we click on this rabbit and we go to the animator, and let's just move this over here, we have this death animation that we never used. So we're simply going to attach it and run it when the rabbit is dead. But if you're using a different kind of model, then simply create a death animation. Maybe the animal should just fall on its side, or maybe explode or whatever, and just follow the same way. So in order to be able to run this animation at any time, and it doesn't matter if the rabbit is idle or running, we're going to make a transition from any state. It means that we can run this animation at any time. So we're going to make a transition over here, and we don't need to make a transition back because when it's going to die, it's going to stay dead. Now we're going to add a trigger and we're going to name it die. And then on this transition, we're going to set it to be the condition. Now inside the animal script, we're going to have a reference to the animator. And then inside the start method, we're also going to get this animator. And now when the animal will die, right, if it reaches under 0, then we're also going to play this sound, but instead of destroying the game object, we're simply going to play this animation. So animator, set trigger, die. So this should be a generic keyword. So if you're going to have more animals, they should all use this same trigger, right? You should give it the same name because they will all use the same script. So this should work for all the different animals. Now we have this AI movement script that is on the rabbit, right? So we don't want this to keep working when the animal is dead. So we're also going to disable the script when the animal is dead. So we're going to get component, AI movement, enabled, false. Now another thing we want to do is add a boolean over here, and it's going to be named is dead, and this will track whether the animal is dead or not. And we're going to use this to prevent the player from hitting the animal when it's already dead. So we're going to take all of this, we're going to surround it with an if statement, and we're going to check if is dead is false. It means that if the animal is not dead, then you can actually hit it and you can kill it. But if the animal is dead, you won't be able to do anything to it because it's dead and you don't need to hit it. And inside this part, when we actually run all of this, we can set is dead to be true. So now let's see if all of this is working. So for now we have this animation and we also have these sounds. So now we are going to also hear this dying sound because we're not destroying the game object. So let's go over here and run the game. And we can see that the rabbit is dead. It's pretty sad, but it's working. He is lying there dead. And also, because we know that it's dead, we cannot keep hitting it. So this is working. The last thing we want to add is some blood effects. Now you don't have to do it, especially if you're sensitive to these things, but we're going to add some blood effects and it's going to add to this game feel. So inside the description of this video, you can find another asset for a particle system that will be some kind of blood splash. And you can also find a blood puddle that we're going to create. So both of these you're going to find in the description. Simply go over here, import package, custom package, and then select this package, and it's going to be imported into your project. So I already have it inside the project. If I go into models, I have this blood splash folder. So you're going to get this particle system and all you need to do is drag it inside the rabbit. Now I changed the scale and the positioning so it should fit this little rabbit. But if you want to make it look different, if you're going to have a bigger animal and you want to change the scale or maybe the position, Of course you can do it. So now that we have this particle system inside the rabbit, we also want to be able to activate it each time we hit the rabbit. So inside the animal script, we're going to have a reference to the particle system. So serialized field, particle system, let's call it blood splash particles. And then inside this take damage method, after we hit the rabbit or any other animal, we're going to play this particle, this splash, blood splash particles, play. So it's going to play it once. Now we also want to take this particle system and drag it into the animal script over here. So we're going to connect these two. And now that we have this particle system, we also want to add some kind of blood puddle. So when the animal will die, he will just create some kind of blood puddle underneath him, and it may get a bit gory. And if you're sensitive to this, of course you don't have to do it for yourself, but I like to make things realistic, so we're going to add this. So you can find a link in the description for this blood puddle sprite, and make sure it's a sprite, and then also click alpha as transparency. So you're simply going to drag it into the scene. So let's move it into the scene. And then we're going to change the values a bit. So the rotation should be -90, and it should be very small in the beginning. So something like 0.03. So if we click on this, we go to the scene, we can see that it's very small. And right now we're going to add some kind of animation that will simply make it bigger, right? So when the animal dies, the puddle will start to become bigger. So we're going to click on the animation tab. We're going to create a new animation. We will go to our animation folder and create this blood puddle. And all we're going to do is simply increase it at the 60th frame. So we're going to start recording, and over here we're going to change it to be 0.17, 0.17, and 0.17. Now we can stop recording, and it will simply grow like this. Now it may seem like it's very big, but it's actually very small, and will go under the rabbit. Now that we have this, we are going to move it into the rabbit. And if we go to the rabbit and we click over here, we're going to first of all change the position back, -90. And now if we play, we can see that will look good. Of course, we should go to the animation itself, and we want to disable the loop time because we want this to happen once, and we don't have to mess with the animator because this will be the actual first animation that will run when this item is going to be activated. So in the beginning, we're going to deactivate this, and then we're going to activate this when the animal is dead. So now inside the animal script, we're going to have a reference. So serialized field, game object, blood puddle, and then we're simply going to activate this when the animal is dead. And now we should also click on the rabbit and drag this reference inside. Now we can also save this prefab, and we can create a few more rabbits. So let's duplicate this. Let's put one here, one over here, and one over here. Now, of course, we can just go to the prefabs and drag the rabbits. And I'm going to delete this big rabbit because we don't need this anymore. So now let's see if everything is working. So now if we go and try to kill this rabbit, we can see that it falls to the ground, and then we also see this blood puddle. Now, the blood puddle takes some time to actually be created, so it moves with the rabbit. We can fine tune it, we can add some kind of delay so it will actually start when the rabbit hits the ground and not before, because you can see that the puddle starts to be created when the rabbit is still not on the floor. So we can fix this. For example, we can go inside, and instead of setting this active over here, we can create some kind of small delay, or we can even trigger this inside this animation. So if we go to the die animation, we click on the rabbit, we actually can't add anything to it because it's read-only, but if you have your own animation that you created, you can simply go to the last frame, and then you can add another keyframe, and this keyframe will simply make this blood puddle active. So it will actually become active when this die animation is done. But we cannot do it because we got this read-only animation for this rabbit model, so we can't even change it. Now, we're going to create some kind of coroutine because I don't like the way it looks. So, enumerator. And I don't know how much we need, maybe like 1 second. And then we're going to run this blood puddle. So over here, start coroutine. So we're going to wait 1 second, and only then we're going to activate this. So it will look much better. And it actually looks better. It starts creating this puddle only when the rabbit is actually hitting the floor. So you need to fine tune it. And this puddle is very simple. It's just a sprite. If you're going to do it on some kind of uneven ground, it's not going to look good. You can see that over here. Well, this looks good because it's on a straight ground, but if it's going to have some kind of angle, like here, it's going to clip through this. And this is just because it's a simple sprite and it clips through this ground because there is some kind of angle to this ground. So it's not a perfect way to create a puddle. You can create some kind of fix with the camera rendering, so it will always render this puddle before the ground, so you will always see this puddle and the ground will always be behind it. So that's a fix. But it's just an option. You don't have to create these puddles. There's a lot of other things you can do, and I'm just giving you suggestions. So now all of these things are working, and we really get this feeling that we're killing an animal, but we still cannot loot it. So in the next episode, we're going to add looting. So when the rabbit will die, it's going to drop a few items, and we're going to be able to pick them up. Now we're also going to be able to play around with the items that we wanted to drop and the amount of items, and we're also going to be able to set the rarity of the drop. So some items will fall each time, other things will fall 50% of the time. So there will be different drop rates, and we're going to be able to set them as we want. So that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're still not subscribed. It will help me a lot. And also leave a like. It will also help me a lot. So see you next time.